Perhaps you can help. Join me. You may be able to help solve a mystery.
Hello, welcome to the Katie Black Show. I'm very excited today. Today I have with
Myer.
me Nancy Myer. Thank you so much for joining, Nancy.
Oh, yes. We overcame our tech problems and we're good.
Yes, prior I could hear Nancy, but I couldn't see her. So,
Somebody was censoring my appearance. Not fair.
well, we got it together. We persevered.
Did.
So, before we get into like how I heard about you, I always ask guests, where were they born? Where did they grow up?
I was born in Warwick, New York, and I grew up all over the place. Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, Afghanistan, and Lebanon.
Oh my
My
God.
dad worked for the U.S. Foreign Service.
Wow. Well, that makes
Yeah,
sense then, right?
I'm sitting here watching a town I lived in being bombed. It's heartbreaking. It
Oh,
is just
yeah.
heartbreaking. But the war in Afghanistan, all of this is hard when you know. I mean, they show streets that have been destroyed, and I know what street it is. That's a
Mm,
tough thing to deal with for any human being.
absolutely. So, my understanding is, are you currently still in Pennsylvania?
Yes, I live in Western Pennsylvania in Latrobe.
And how long have you lived there?
About 20 years, but I've been in this general area since the early 80s.
And so, do you like it and enjoy it? And
I like that. It reminds me, with all the rivers, of Chile, except there's no Andes. My mom said there were mountains here, but the Alleghenies are babies next to the Andes. To me,
right,
that doesn't count exactly. I'll get in trouble with locusts for saying that they're small, but they are. They're
right.
beautiful, though. This time of year, there's laurel that grows wild in the woods that's blooming. It's gorgeous. But winter, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Having
different
grown
story.
up in only warm climates, I don't like winter.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can imagine.
It's
I
a
can
big adjustment.
So I found out about Nancy through me obsessively. I'm still trying to figure that out, watching the old Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack. Like, I think I've seen pretty much all of them pretty repeatedly. So if there was ever a show about, a Jeopardy featuring those, I could go on there. But you were featured in 2 episodes, 3 episodes. Do you remember?
I think it's 3. They liked
Um,
working with me, and I liked working with them.
so can you tell everyone why you were featured on the series?
I don't remember which one we did first, but I think there was an episode on a case that I worked on with the Wilmington police in Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a pretty interesting case because it was ongoing and assault, rape attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And they took me to the different sites, and then I actually visited one of the ladies that had been attacked because she was an artist and she had drawn a picture, and I had described to them what the person looked like, and the detectives recognized my description as being very similar to her drawing. But what they did not tell me, when she opened the door and they had me standing in front of them, she looked like my double. It was so weird because then I instantly knew I was this type.
Oh,
It was
interesting.
unsettling to her and it was unsettling to me.
Mm-hmm.
But because my mom was an artist, I was completely comfortable with working with her, and I had worked with profile artists before. And when she showed me her drawing, she said, I don't think the eyes are right. I couldn't look him in the eyes. And I gave her some suggestions. She got her pencil and corrected the drawing. And then it looked exactly like what I was visualizing.
Mhm.
And what the detectives decided to do, they would show both drawings before I changed it and after I changed it. Um, and I gave them a description of a particular uniform that he wore often. And I kept walking down the street very fast after each assault and ending up at the same mailbox at the bottom of a street. And I didn't want to go up that street. And they finally talked me into admitting that I was afraid to go up that street because he was staying in a house on that street.
Mhm.
So they both unsnapped their guns and said, "We'll protect you." And we walked right up the middle of the street. And I pointed to the house and said, "He's not there right now, but this is where he's been staying. And he stays here only for short visits, and then he has to go back to his job." What turned out to be the oddest thing about it is, as we did get further going, they did find out who it was. Partly knowing where he was staying was a big help. But
Mhm.
what was really odd about it is he was on work release from prison. The uniform I was describing was his prison uniform.
Mhm.
And it was like neither one of the cops who have been down to that prison all the time recognized my description. They were looking at EMT's uniforms and all this stuff, but it was actually a prison uniform. But he was arrested, and thank goodness the rape assault stopped. Because, when you're working on a case like that and it's ongoing, you want to get it solved to stop other people from being hurt.
Right.
Plus, the violence level could have gotten worse and somebody could have been killed. So
Mhm.
I think that was the first segment I did with them. But then I worked on the Jennifer Odom case in Florida. She was a youngster that had been abducted. That's everybody's nightmare to work on a case like that. And they had never found, she had just gotten off the school bus, so she had her instrument and backpack or whatever she was carrying her books and stuff in. That had never been found. And when they took me to the site, when I'm drawn to something, I start moving fast and I don't always recognize what's in front of me. So I started up and I didn't know there was a cameraman squatted down right in front of me. And I started to fall over him. And two of the people grabbed me so I wouldn't fall on him and so he wouldn't get hurt. I felt like an idiot, but I said, "You guys have to watch where I'm going because I'm looking at the visualization and not seeing." So like
Yeah, like tunnel
I'll
vision.
walk into water, I'll walk into traffic, and you have to watch for that. But I showed them it was an area we couldn't easily access, but I told them where they had thrown her belongings. And that I felt kind of happy about because at least they found them. They went on a thorough search with everybody in wading boots and stuff because it was wet around where they threw. They found her instrument, all of her personal belongings, the purse. They found it. And I thought, that's good because for her parents, having those things back meant the world. But I know they've made an arrest. They have not told me, but a client of mine that lives in Florida called me and said that they had made arrests. And I'm glad because people like that, they don't stop doing bad things,
Mhm.
unfortunately. They just don't, unless they're arrested. But when we were getting, I enjoyed working with Unsolved Mysteries because they're very professional in how they do things. They don't ask me to lie or make stuff up. And some shows tried to do that. Well,
Mm.
can't you elaborate? And I said, no, I can't. I can't discuss details about a case because it endangers the case. And they would just kind of get annoyed with me and say, well, then just make it up. And I said, no, I'm going to either say the
Tell you
truth
like it is, yeah.
or we end the show because that's not who I am. They
Yeah.
were really kind of tickled. And then we were getting ready to go. And on that shoot, I had to take my youngest child who had just had a serious head injury and was having serious some epilepsy type symptoms. No one was home that could take care of him, so he had to come on the trip. And we're sitting in the hotel room getting ready, and he's looking out the window, and he says, "Mom, they're packing everything up and they're leaving without us." I said, "Oh, no, they wouldn't do that. No, no problem." And then sure enough, they did. They were driving from the hotel in Wilmington to the airport in Philly and completely forgot to pick us up. So we all went. I wasn't worried about it because I knew I could get a car to get me to the airport, and I had my tickets for our, so we get on the flight. I said, we'll just surprise them when we get on the flight. So we did make a reservation tentatively for a car. And then I said to my son, you sit here and watch the suitcases, because he was so upset. I couldn't do my thing next to him because he was too upset.
Mhm.
And I went in the ladies' room and I focused on making the drivers and the crew think about me and realize that they forgot me. And they did. And it's like they stopped dead, and then they separated. The the equipment went on ahead, and a car turned back, and they came back to get me. And Alex said to me, "Pretend you're really mad, Mom."
That is too funny.
So I did. I acted like I was deeply offended that I had been left behind. But
By Unsolved
we all ended
Mysteries.
up, we all ended up laughing about it. But that's the kind of crazy stuff that happens.
Right.
And then we got down to the hotel in Florida, and Alex again is looking out the window. "Mom, they didn't shut the back door on the truck that has their equipment." So we went out and found which room they were in. I used my ability to figure out the room. I knew they were on a similar hall. I knocked on the door. I said, "The door of the rental truck is open with all your equipment." They ran out there. Luckily, nothing was stolen. I said to Alex when I was standing next to the producer, "He earned his weight in gold this time, didn't he?" And he said, "Yeah, he did, because that equipment's expensive."
Expensive, absolutely.
That's like, good catch, Alex. But
Now,
it was really interesting to work with them because they not only pay attention to protecting the case, which they are really good at, and not all shows care about that, but
mhm.
they do. But they did a really good job of presenting it factually. And I'm a big fan of Unsolved Mysteries. I always have been. So it's kind of fun to be on a show, and Alex is too. We have enjoyed that show. And then to participate in it was pretty neat.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I know they've done like a new segment of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix, but I'm just really intrigued by the original. Did you
Yeah.
ever meet Robert Stack, or was that just a separate
No,
entity?
that's filmed separately.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another show I was on, and one of the guys who was from Star Trek was the narrator on that. And
Oh my gosh,
Alex,
Rescue 911?
no, Star
Oh,
Trek.
oh. I'm thinking of William Shatner.
hmm It wasn't him, but it was one of the new
Okay.
generation
Okay.
guys. And I didn't get to meet him either, but they got me photos, signed photos for Alex, because Star Trek was his thing.
His thing.
So that was fun. Because
That's
my kids, they had to put up with a lot because of my unusual career. And that hasn't been fun for them. They've had to deal with their mother being called a witch and all
mhm.
kinds of stuff. But getting them some photos occasionally that they like, that helped.
Right, right. No, I'm sure. Well, I guess, and to get into that, because I have so many questions. At what point in your life did you realize that you had this gift?
When I was 28, something happened, and it was like somebody blew doors open in my mind. The volume of information coming in was very, very awful. I mean, I didn't know what to do. It was giving me headaches. It was nonstop. I couldn't even think. And then I decided to pretend that it was like a TV going off in my brain with a volume knob, and I turned it down in the visuals. And that turned the sound level down to a level where I could exist. I was not real thrilled with that changed because I could hear and feel arguments in the neighborhood. I could, if I was in a row of people, I picked up things about them. I had never had it that strongly before, and it was a big adjustment. I really kind of didn't want it. But as it happened, a friend of mine's house was burglarized, and I figured out who did it and helped her out. And she told the police officers where she got the information from. And I was asked to do a seminar after I had been working privately for a while, and they invited a whole bunch of police officers. They tell me this as I'm walking in to the place where we're going to do a day's workshop and how to use psychic ability. Then they tell me the audience is full of cops, and I'm thinking, oh, great, I'm probably going to get arrested. It was not comfortable, and they were all out of uniform, so I had no idea who was a cop and who wasn't. And there was a guy that was telling everybody that would listen, a very loud kind of guy, that he could always tell people's professions by how they looked. And the lady who was running the seminar had gotten irritated with that guy, and she said to him, I bet you can't tell which person in here is the psychic. Oh, I'll tell that in a minute. And when I walked in the room and I was circling around and kind of listening to conversations, she went over to him and asked him, and she hadn't told me what happened. She asked him to pick out the psychic, and I'm there, dressed for a public appearance in a pantsuit, which was my thing. And he could not, and then he couldn't pick by looking at everybody. So she said, well, what does this lady do? And what does this lady do? And she led him up to me and asked him what I did. And he said, she's a teacher. And I just died laughing. I said, well, partly you're right, because I teach people how to handle being psychic. But when I told them that I was a psychic, the whole crowd just cracked up because he had been bragging that I guess I asked him what he thought I would have been wearing, and he said, I thought you'd come in a muumuu. And I'm like, not my style.
So many things. So I guess it is interesting. Obviously, I see from the episodes and just from what you're telling me that you did help law enforcement. Was that hard? Like, because my understanding, cops are very like, this is what happened and I need evidence and blah, blah, blah. How did you just get connected with the right officers?
When I gave that seminar, one of the attendants was the new head of the Delaware State Police.
Oh my
goodness. He was in the seminar. So he pulls a trick, and the audience knew what was going on. I was in the ladies' room because I walked in the ladies' room and got waylaid, then I needed to go. So he handed his ring to another cop.
Mm-hmm.
So that cop, I was doing psychometry where you hold an object and get information. And that cop gave me the ring. And I gave him the dirtiest look because I knew the minute he handed it to me, it wasn't his ring. And they were trying to set me up. So after I gave him a dirty look, I turned around and I looked over the audience and I saw this man and I knew it was his ring. So I walked across the front of the audience and stood directly in front of him and began to talk about something I had the feeling he didn't want to talk about. Not an embarrassing something. He was about to be promoted to a really important job. And I start talking about that, and all of a sudden this guy shoots up out of his seat and says, it's my ring. I tried to pull something. Please don't say anything else. And I pretended that I was going to ignore what he said, but I kind of realized when he stood up what the job was. And so I said, your wife is going to hate the new job. And he died laughing and he said, you are 100% correct. But what he didn't want me to say was what the job was. It hadn't been publicly announced. He had just found out and it wasn't out publicly, and that would have been awful. But after he was made and sworn in, he called me every day for 9 weeks in the morning. Will you please come help my detective solve these cases? And he just wouldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally said, because he made me call him Smitty, I wanted to call him Colonel Smith. And I said, you're not going to quit until I do it, are you? And I said, I did not believe it was detailed enough, that I could do enough. They went out, they sent 2 detectives. One of the detectives did not want to be there. Smitty told him if he didn't go, he was going to fire him. That was Detective Sergeant Carl Williams. Turned out to be one of the best detectives I ever got to work with. The guy was magic in my view. And we went out, and Greg Sacco, Captain Greg Sacco, he became captain later. He was a detective at that time. And he came with him. And he was enthused. He had researched it. He'd read about other people that did it. He was looking forward to trying it. They took me to 3 crime scenes. And of the 3 crime scenes, I solved both of them for them, just with the first drive through. And both of them were dangerous perpetrators.
Mm-hmm.
And in both cases, I gave them ways to find the perpetrators. The stuff just poured into me, and we did learn that I don't do well when I'm standing on the actual site. I can't.
It's too heavy.
It's too upsetting. So we had to get in a car and drive away. And then I could tell them all kinds of stuff. But the detail that I gave was really the third one I couldn't solve. It was a drive-by shooting, and there wasn't any way to solve that. Excuse me, I'll have to hide my phone there.
Oh, you're fine.
I don't think that one was ever solved, but the other 2 were solved. And all of a sudden, Detective Williams looks at me and he says, you know you're in trouble now. And I said, why? What did I do? I'm still worried about getting arrested. And he said, you just solved 2 out of 3 cases that could not be solved. What do you think Smitty's going to do? And I said, oh my God, can you not tell him? And they said, nope, they already had told him. He said, didn't you hear me make that call? I said, Greg was talking to me, distracting me. I didn't know you were talking to Smitty. I said, yeah. He just called him up and said, it's a go. And because it came from Williams, he knew I had done something because Williams didn't even want to be there. We worked together for years, and it was a very good teamwork effort because any psychic can get a certain amount of information, but it's the footwork. Oh, here we go. Now every phone is, but it's the footwork that the detectives do that really solves the case. So I don't really count it as I did the case. I assisted them, and then I told them what I saw about where the child's body had been placed beside a railroad track, which was awful. But what they did was contact the train people, and all the engineers and people that were going to be riding those tracks were asked to watch for that child's body because it was right visible right beside the tracks, and they found the child. So at least that happened. But I think a lot of people have a very strong prejudice against the word psychic, which is unfortunate. And although it bothers me because I have been literally treated very badly because that word is in my title, they don't have any awareness that the word detective is not meaningless. I was taught how to be a good homicide detective with Carl Williams teaching me, and he was really a good teacher. And they just think everybody that does this job is a fraud. And I've been really disappointed because so many people that I've met who claim to be psychic don't have an ounce of it. It's
And
not
I have encountered that too. Or it's
minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not
And that's why it's tricky.
common. The real thing is not common, and that's lonely, but I have had psychiatrists and stuff that wanted to test me to find out because they read about the very specific details and or heard about them from cops they knew. So they knew I was actually doing the work. They wanted to know what was different about my brain. I've been asked that. One of them ran the MMPI thing on me, and he said, "Oh my God, I should have realized this right away." He said, "You're an INFJ or something. I think it's INFJ. I can't remember the whole title, but it is intuitive as the first letter. But what's different about that personality, you think in a way that you see right through the clutter and get right down to business on what's most important in a very focused and organized way. And I always knew that even the real psychics that I met did not think the way I do. They did not have the combination of the intuition and the organization. But the description of the INFJ personality fits me to a T. It's exactly how I think. And it's really helped me feel better. But it's still lonely because only 2% of the population has that kind of personality. I have met a few people that have it, and I've told them to look that up so that they are oriented. But it's rare because you don't get the intuition with the logic working so well together. That's what makes me a really good detective.
Well, going, like I said, so many questions. I guess for people that believe they're psychic, believe they're clairvoyant, what have you, what are some like one or two tips? What do you?
Well, one of the first ones would be learn to focus internally. And you can do that in the simplest way. Meditation is what would be recommended. But I found that people who teach meditation and support themselves doing it make their customers depend on them. If you take daydreaming and use it slightly differently, I call it lazy man's meditation. The book publishers aren't interested in publishing it with that title, but that's what it is. Daydreaming is an internal focus that almost all of us have had that experience. So if you imagine a setting you like that's quiet and happy and pretty and put yourself there for a couple of minutes, you will find that your whole body relaxes. You have actually meditated without knowing it. And if you start doing focuses like that, like if you're getting upset about something, the news is upsetting a lot of people, so this is good to know. Visualize a place in nature where you're happy, not with a lot of activity. Now, your mind is going to get easily distracted. It's like a 2-year-old kid, so you got to get something else. Add a little more, like if you're looking at a meadow, have a fawn walk out. That way you can focus on the fawn a little bit more to get your attention focused on the scene you've created and not running off on this is what I need to get to the store, or I wonder if the kids are behaving. That distractibility makes it very difficult. And Americans have a very unique way, having lived in so many different countries. We're not a meditative culture by nature. We aren't. We're a go get 'em. Let's get it done now. That is putting your mind in ascending mode. And to meditate, you got to put it in it's like a walkie-talkie. You put your button on the send button, you can't hear what's coming in. You got to take your finger off the send button. So you have to switch your mind from sending to receiving. And using an image like that does it very quickly. And then you can calm down. It's like you can work around the chaos. And most parents do that to a degree, especially if you have more than one kid, because they're going to get into it every now and then. You got to calm down and you got to get them calmed down. So it's a skill that I think is absolutely essential to living. And it's easy to do it. Because if you sit there and make that imaginary vision for yourself, it calms you right down. It's amazing. It's almost like our mind doesn't have someone steering it. And when you learn to focus internally, you're in charge. And that cuts your wandering and getting distracted. Of course, that's even more difficult for people with ADHD and things like that. They have a harder time. They need a more active image.
Now, do you, anytime like you encounter someone, like just even me, like are you flooded with stuff or do you put a blockade up or?
I really don't read anyone unless they have specifically asked me to. That's like spying on somebody. Now, if someone I'm around is a perp, a suspected perp, then I will
Pick
go
up
and
on
see
that. Yeah.
that. That's my job. But I think it's rude, and I know some people do this. They walk right up to a stranger. I even had them do it to me and tell them so and so is going to die around you, and I'll tell you how
Oh
to avoid it.
no.
And I'm like, don't even dare talk to me with that attitude. You are putting every psychic to shame by doing that.
That's
It's
intense.
awful. But they do that, and then they make people pay them extra fees so they can put a spell to stop it. And like, those are the rip-off artists that are really obvious. But I have had people come up after I've given a talk and quietly stand there and watch me, and they're thinking, pick me, pick me. And I do. It's usually young people that will do that, and I will talk to them because they need to know that someone else who's real is right in front of them. And the contrast between how I handle that and a person like that that runs up and tells you somebody's going to die just to get you to pay
Yeah,
them
that's
for a reading. They need to see the real thing. And I've seen some very talented youngsters. And often they'll say, I saw you on Unsolved Mysteries. It's kind of been a show that has brought a lot of people to the awareness that it can be real. And I think that's important. In the old days, the Native Americans and other Native peoples and countries I've lived in, they can all do telepathy like it's nothing. And they are surprised to find an American that can do it. And they'll say that. We usually have to use translators because, like in Ecuador, they speak Quechua. I speak Spanish and English fluently, but I don't speak Quechua. So we'd find somebody that spoke Quechua and Spanish, and then we'd talk. And they asked me, how did I learn to do it? Because Americans normally give information, but they can't get it. And that's the switch that we need to make in receiving. And I think a lot more people could use their intuitive ability if they could get that switch. You know, when you're looking for something that you've lost and you're looking really hard, you're not going to find it. When you give up, walk away, it suddenly comes into your mind exactly where it is. Your mind switched to receive. When you're sending, you couldn't get the message. So the next time you lose something, open your mind. Okay, mind, show me where I left it.
Now, can I ask you a question about something that I deal with?
Mm-hmm.
I take on other people's emotions, thoughts like a sponge. And just in the last few years have I realized I was even doing it. And so I sometimes struggle with taking on other people's stuff that I don't even intend to.
That's what an empath does. Now, what you need to do is learn how to protect and shield yourself. You need an image that makes you feel safe. And when you start feeling, or you know you're going into a situation where compelling people that are upset are going to be there, you put that shield around you.
Because
Like Alan uses Star Trek images to do that. He puts a shield out there. I have to I use a Victorian house. I don't know why, but I can shut the windows and shut the shutters and put metal shutters on. I can do different levels. I have to have it. You can't do my work and shut down completely, nor am I able to completely shut it off. It just won't go off now.
Because I've even recently, because I've become, I don't want to say I'm a recluse because I'm not a recluse, but just compared to what I was, 10 years earlier, where I was constantly around people, and especially with on and off remote working, I've noticed that when I also go into social situations, like beyond, a dinner or a 24-hour window, I'll swell. My fingers will swell. My face will swell. And so I'm just just trying to understand that, work through that. So I'm aware, but it's just not really being in a place where I'm not really sure what to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things you've described, that swelling, is from dehydration. Your body's stressed, you go through the fluid faster. Drink something and the swelling goes down. But what's happening, and this is difficult for me as well, everybody's angry everywhere.
Yes.
I've never been in this situation. It's awful. There's just so much rage.
Yeah.
And of course, the criminal element are over, they're just really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an awful lot of regular people who are so terrified and angry. And that you need to kind of shield yourself as you start your workday. As an empath, you would be able to use that skill to know how to open up someone to talk to you. That's part of being an empath. You make them feel comfortable and they tell you all kinds of stuff that they might not tell somebody else. I could feel that happening with you, and we're not sitting in the same place.
Right. That's so interesting that you say that, because I feel like obviously now recently in life I've realized that, but I have always had that kind of question of why is this stranger telling me this? This is so wild, Even as a kid, I'd be like, huh, Miss So and
animals come up to you too?
Yes. Yes.
And I have animals too. It's like that connection telepathically is instant and unconscious, but the animals know. I've had more cats look at me and examine me up to down and then look behind for my tail, because I don't look like a cat, but I think like a cat. And I'm allergic to cats, but they want to get in my lap. They want to say hello. They want to talk to me. I'm a dog person, and I really love animals. Horses are amazing, and dolphins. I have to be careful at aquariums. I almost got arrested because I wanted to walk down close to get a better look at the dolphins, and there was a killer whale, and they all started swimming toward me, and their caretakers were worried I was going to hurt them. They had never seen them do that. And they came over, and I just explained to them what I do. And I said, I've always heard how intuitive dolphins are. And I said, I just saw, I didn't know they were going to do that. That was kind of weird.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's like, you're an empath. You also have precognitive skills. So you are going to get visions sometimes.
I do, yeah.
And not usually good news. And that's because the good news stuff comes in quietly. The bad news stuff comes in loudly. And it's not there to scare you. It's there to get you braced. I call it our early warning system.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to go through something bad and you have a little heads up, it's easier to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then also too, talking about how you're able to combine your logic with intuitivity. I feel like, obviously, and I'm sure everyone does to an extent, like I feel like I struggle with that very hard, because I also am, logic to I guess I just always have my defense up for strangers. like stranger danger, but like to the 10th degree. And so I struggle with, is that because I'm just hyper fixated, hyper aware of everybody? And I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I just struggle. I struggle with
I
that.
know exactly what you're talking about. You're an empath. That has inconvenient aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you are in a supermarket, I was working a case and I was in the grocery line. I was also very pregnant at the time. And the guy in front of me kept staring at me in a very uncomfortable way. And I was uncomfortable because I knew that he was the perpetrator of a case, the very case I was working on.
Mm-hmm.
And he was setting up the burglaries. So after I got out of that line, I knew the manager of the store. I asked him if that guy came in regularly, and he said he did. So I told the detectives who the manager was, and the manager said he knew his name, but he couldn't give it to me. And I said, I'm going to tell some detectives, and they're going to come and ask you. And he asked me for the names of the detectives, and I gave them to him. And then I called them. Then another weird thing happened. The guy had found out about me somehow and came to me he said he wanted to talk to me to get career advice. And when I opened the door and realized it was the guy, I thought, okay, I'll give you some very good advice. I told him that if he didn't change jobs right away, he was running into a trap where he would never progress in life. Because what he was doing was serious enough, it was going to be a long sentence. I figured it went right over his head. He was mad at me. He said I wasn't any good at what I did. I said, well, I'm very sorry you feel that way. And thank you for coming. And I ushered him out the door, and I called the detectives I was working with and told them, because I always asked my clients in those days for their name, address, and phone number. And he gave
Mm-hmm.
it to me. So I gave them the name, address, and phone number.
Oh, wow.
They didn't go arrest him right away because they had to prove that it was him. But they started following him, and he was arrested 2 days later.
Oh, wow.
And he said to one of the officers that knew how they caught him, will you tell that, you know what, psychic, I hate her? It was like, he figured out what I had actually told him. But I didn't say you're going to go to jail if you don't stop it. I wasn't going to give him that kind of a warning.
Right, right. It
He
has to be like
needed to be
subtle.
caught. You know, it's like, I don't have any sense of remorse for getting these people jailed and protecting other people from them. It's just, but the logic you're talking about, it's kind of like that part of your mind wants to stop the intuitive part, but you have to learn to balance them together. You don't want to lose those warnings that somebody isn't safe. It may come through loudly, and one of the things that reduces the volumes, if you say, to yourself, not out loud, I realize you're trying to warn me. Thank you. It will lower the volume, because they up the volume because they think you didn't hear them the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you acknowledge that you heard it, then you can ask the second question. I did hear, is there some way I can avoid this? They will answer that. And because you're paying attention to what's coming in internally, it gets clearer.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I've found with
Yeah.
age. And even if it's something not like on a criminal level, but even if it's like just in the last like two years, I've encountered people, and I feel like I've never had this before, because I'm like, everyone's great, everyone's nice, where I'll meet someone and they're very pleasant, they're very nice, but internally I'm like, I don't like them. And I feel like that's new to me, right?
Don't ignore that.
Right. That's new to me. That's new
That's
to
kind
me.
of like I was thinking the other day when I saw the news on the Gilgo Beach serial.
Yes.
That smirk. He really was enjoying
What he was doing.
that people knew who he was and were afraid of him. And here he had this regular job,
Mm-hmm.
And people met him all the time, and I'll bet a lot of empaths like you would have felt absolute terror being in the same building with him, let alone the
Elevator.
same.
Absolutely.
But that is how you are. That's why I call it an early warning. It keeps you safe. But it's good to say thank you too. Thank you for warning me, because the next time they'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a friend who gives you good advice. If you don't pay attention to it, they'll stop giving you any advice. They give up. Don't do that to your intuitive ability. When it does protect you, say thank you.
Now, from your perspective, do you feel like everyone's life is planned out?
Not exactly. I think some general events are. To give you a painful example, I have 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest son is very, very psychic. I adopted 2 boys and then had a surprise kid that was born to me. My oldest boy, from when he was 3 or 4 years old, told me, "Don't worry about me getting old, Mom. I'm not even going to make it to 50." I was horrified that a 4-year-old, 3 and 4-year-old was saying this.
Absolutely.
It was extremely upsetting to me, and I tried to put it out of my mind, but you never forget. And every now and then throughout his life, he would remind me of that. He said, "Don't worry about me, Mom. I'm not going to get old. I'm not going to leave." Well, the year that he was about to become 50, he was 49, he and I decided that we were going to really celebrate that birthday because he had made it through. And we were planning for the birthday. His birthday's May 31st, and he died between February 7th and the 11th.
Mm.
I was destroyed. Not just because my son died, but he was right in that prediction. And there wasn't, I had tried a lot of stuff to make sure he didn't have that young a death, and it just didn't work.
I'm
It was
sorry.
really sad. So you can have stuff that is set, which obviously that was in his life. He didn't want it, I didn't want it, but we couldn't find a way to change it. And that's kind of what I see sometimes. People go through stuff. I notice sometimes that there are certain types of events that will repeat, and either I'm learning a lesson or someone else
Mm-hmm.
needs to learn the lesson, and these events keep rehappening. I often will talk to a client about, if you feel this type of thing keeps happening, it's like you're in a box. Study the box. What could you learn spiritually from being in that position, and then learn it as fast as you can? Then the things don't happen again. That you've learned the lesson, you outgrew it. But
Mm-hmm.
it is partly planned, and then murder and disasters change everybody's plans. They happen, and they're not usually planned. And
Mm-hmm.
when you look at Katrina, how horrible that hurricane was. And earthquakes, which living in Chillán, Chile, which is the center of the very worst earthquake that's ever been recorded on the earth. Luckily, we were in Ecuador when that happened, but we went through a lot of quakes while I was living there. It's very frightening. I moved to this part of Pennsylvania because I felt it wouldn't have big earthquakes because it's old mountains, and the area is more stable.
Mm-hmm.
I have felt tremors here that come from earthquakes in Alaska. We're at the end of a fault line there, but I've never had the big ones that like 7.6 and stuff, which we lived through stuff like that in Chile. I don't ever want to go through that again.
Right. If someone had, a certain ability like yourself and they wanted to help law enforcement, is that kind of, do you think it is a kind of like a your scenario where it has to have like the stars align and you just meet the right
Yes,
police officer as opposed to going out of your way?
yes. I find that is very much the way it is. The best are found. They are accidentally put in a situation which draws the attention, of a cop that's open-minded, and they work together.
Mm-hmm.
Cops get people claiming to be psychic
A lot.
all the time.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
I mean, if someone is missing and they're on the news, the wannabes are on the phone to the police wasting their time. The people who really have this ability, we don't go near a case that we aren't asked to work on. And that's the way it should be. You can't solve a case totally relying on psychic input. You have to have proof. I learned that early on, and what I did was train myself how to find the truth so they could get it. Missing weapons, missing witnesses. That's how I've worked from the beginning. I mean, Carl Williams taught me to be a really good detective. So I knew who did what, and I could put them where they could prove that person did it.
Mm-hmm.
Finding the weapon and stuff like that. You uncover stuff like that, you're useful as a psychic. Just describing what happened with forensic science the way it is, that's not it. But there were things like there was a murder, and I work from the crime scene photos now because it's easier on me. The whole place had balled up Kleenexes in it, and luckily the good detectives made a grid of every last one of
Mm-hmm.
those. And I said, that's the only one that's got DNA and it's got semen on it. Get
Mm-hmm.
it. They took that to the lab first. They actually had to process every single Kleenex. There was over 100 of them. But the first one that I pointed out they sent to the lab had the DNA. It was the only one that did. But they did process everything else too. It's kind of, police work is hard. It really is. And it's unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're made as empathic as I am, police work is not. But I'm good at it. And when I realized how I could do that and distance myself enough to do a good job, but it takes a while to learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Compartmentalize. Well, a couple more questions. Have you ever encountered something where you read in the paper or see on the news that they've arrested someone and you're like, that's the wrong person?
I see that all the time.
What do you do?
Well, if I know the cop or know that a cop I know knows him, I will warn him. But I really don't get in the middle. Police work is hard. I don't I don't volunteer. It's the wrong way to go. Because I believe that if I'm supposed to work the case, they'll find me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of people call me, try to get me involved in cases, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't volunteer. And the people that do that are not respected at all for doing it. They're like ambulance chasers, It's like, it's uncool. It really is. I hate to say that, but it is. But I know that on a case that I can help with, I will get found. And that's what happened there was a case here years ago, the Homestead Rapist. It was a terrible case. The guy was attacking 70 and 80-year-old women, beating them and raping them. It was horrible. And what bothered me the most when I was first asked by the chief if I would help, the first time I stepped on one of the sites to figure it out, I knew he was escalating the violence so badly he was going to end up killing somebody. And I told the detective that. And he said they had the same feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a challenging case because there were two rapists on all of those properties. I had to mentally separate which was the one doing it and which one wasn't. And I was able to do a good enough description that I sat down with a police artist, and I had worked with him before. He was really good. He was working undercover, so I can't give his name, but he drew a really good picture. But I kept saying, he wears a hat. He wears that darn hat practically to bed. You've got to put the hat on him. So finally, I aggravated them enough. The artist volunteered to draw him with the hat, and he did. And the Pittsburgh Press did an article, and my husband at the time was the business editor, but he put his byline on there and told the story. And they put the drawing with the hat right next to the actual photograph of the man as he was being arrested wearing that hat.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I don't know if it's still online, but it probably is. And it's just kind of like, that felt good because he was such a terrible perpetrator. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, good. Now, hopefully, he doesn't get out of jail and he'll be able to maybe face himself. I won't
Mm-hmm.
hold my breath on that one, but I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so two more questions.
Okay.
Um, is there anything, like, obviously, if you feel comfortable, is there one fun thing you could tell me about me in my career, or is that too on the spot?
Now you're being offered a new position probably within the next 6 or 7 months. And I feel like it's a good position. And part of why it's good is you'll learn a lot doing it that will help you going forward. But it is going to be tough because you will be dealing with people at a very painful time in our country. But it also gives you a story about what that's like that will make an incredible book. And your writing is going to become more and more important in your life as you grow in knowledge. It's like you're going to have probably 8 or 9 books in your life that you will write, which is a lot. People think you can produce a book quickly.
Yes.
You can't.
That is so
I've done 2 and I'm working on my 3rd and I am the world's worst. I just have to have it said right. I
right.
edit the heck out of it. But you have a really wonderful communication talent. You really do. And it's part of being an empath that you can feel things, but you are also able to tell them and make other people understand what that feels like. That's
Yay.
cool.
That's
So
so
that new job, I don't think you'll be at it for many, many years, but you will learn so much and it will give you a really good book.
Yay, that's exciting. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so at the very end, I try to be nostalgic. And so was just wondering, growing up, did you love a band? Did you love an artist? Did you love a favorite show that you can share?
Elvis Presley.
Me too. I mean,
The
I
king,
yeah,
the king, oh God, he was good. Um, Music has always been important to me. I was a ballet dancer for many, many years, not in classes, and I just loved dance. The Nutcracker Suite, I did dance in the Nutcracker Street in Delaware, and it's like that's such a fun memory for me. Music is part of my life. I play it all the time. I can play an organ just for myself. I will never play an organ publicly. I'm no good that way. But for fun and to relax, it's like I love classical music and I love rock and roll. I mean, that's my
the best.
and hippie music. Yeah, I don't know what they call it now. We used to call it hippie. Joan Baez. I love
Yeah.
her singing. I love her singing. But Elvis, I mean, how can you miss that? That was the biggest, and the Beatles. They were good too.
Did
But
you did your parental figures were you allowed to watch him? You know, I feel like some parental
my
adults were not
parents,
about
my
it.
mom and dad were really open-minded.
Oh, cool.
But we were overseas. We didn't have TV. But
Oh,
I was staying with my grandparents because there was a sniper shooting at kids at the bus stop, and he was shooting at the tallest kid, and I was the tallest kid. So my dad sent me home. He wasn't going to take the chance I was going to get killed. And while I was there, my grandparents had TV. So I saw TV for the first time ever.
oh,
And
cool.
Elvis was on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Hmm.
My grandmother did not want me to watch that.
Hmm.
So my grandfather, who was quite ornery, he turned on a ball game. I sat near the TV and we'd turn Ed Sullivan on, waiting for Elvis to show up. And if we felt Gran was coming in from the kitchen, we'd turn it back to the ball game. And she came in just as Elvis came on, and my grandfather didn't have the heart to turn it away, and she said, "You may not watch his hips at all. I've heard what he does."
That is too funny.
But he did not do it a lot. He was trying to be good on the Ed Sullivan show,
Yeah.
but I loved him. I just loved the feistiness, voice, and the orneriness. I enjoyed him.
Yeah, I love Elvis has a special place with me as
Yes,
well.
he does. He has a special place for many of us. So
Yeah. Very cool. Well, Nancy, do you have a website? Do you want to tell people where people can find
I'm on
you?
Facebook and I have a website. And I don't have time always to get the website up to date, but the contact information is there. And I'm on Facebook, and I use my Facebook page. I do not discuss politics or negative stuff. I
Sure.
talk about, like, I'm very much happy because it's spring, and I'm all over that. I complain about the cold mercilessly, and everybody laughs at me because I have earmuffs on in the fall when nobody else does.
Right.
So they can put my name in, and the last name is Myer. If you spell it right, you'll get me.
Yeah, no S.
And I'm
Well,
a published author also, so two of the books, one of them's out of print. I think the second one, Travels with my Nancy, Psychic Detective, I forget the title, but I think that's still on Amazon available.
very cool. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for joining. Did you have fun?
I did. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm so glad we stuck with it because we're not technical people, so we had a time getting it to work.
Yes, and I'm so glad we pushed through and made it happen. Didn't give up.
Yes, yes. I don't give up. You can't work in the line of work I work and give up. You just
Fair.
can't. Yeah,
Fair.
you just can't. And I tell everybody else, things are going to get better for our country. It's going to take a while. We're going through a difficult time, but it will get better.
I agree. Yay, that's so nice to hear. That's so nice to hear. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
This is so exciting. You are my first Unsolved Mystery adjacent guest. So this is like so big for
That's
me.
cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that show. They do such a good job.
I agree. I agree. Well, thank you so much. And I will talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you, Katie.